Okay, so imagine this. You have a cabinet, but it's not just any cabinet. This one is actually shaped like a country.
Interesting.
Yeah, and get this, it holds memories. And like not just in its drawers, but as its very form, the
Yeah.
actual cabinet.
Wow. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it's called Snapshot of Soft Memories. And it's by this artist, Ephraim Cohen.
Avram Cohen. I'm not familiar.
Yeah, he's super interesting. He's like this fascinating blend of artist, but also industrial designer. And he's got roots in both Israel and the US. So you get that kind of duality in his work, which I think is super cool.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. I'm already thinking about the blending of function and meaning and memory. This is going to
Oh,
be good.
yeah, totally. Okay, so back to this cabinet. It's shaped like a country. We get that. But the description, it says it's like this frozen image of Israel from his past.
Oh, I love that.
Right. What does that even mean, though, like practically speaking? How do you freeze an image in a cabinet?
It's like, how do you take a feeling, that essence of a place, especially a place that's so tied to your memory, and then give it some kind of physical form, something you can actually touch? It's more than just like, oh, I remember that place. It's like carrying a physical manifestation of home within you. And it really makes you think about how our relationship to a place, especially like a childhood home, really shapes us. And how in a world where people are always, moving, migrating, how do we carry those places with us? And what happens when we can't?
Yeah, and that really adds another layer to it because I was thinking about nostalgia, but you're right. It's so much deeper than that.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is, Cohen doesn't just tell us about the past. He actually shows us. He covers the entire surface of the cabinet with all these laser-etched foam tiles.
Oh, yeah, I was curious about those.
Imagine something that just totally takes you back to your childhood. Like maybe for you, it's a certain cereal box.
Oh, totally. Or like a billboard I used to drive by every day with my parents. I can still picture it perfectly.
Exactly. It's that instant recognition, right? So Cohen does that, but he uses images that are really specific to Israel, particularly like the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Things like Bomba, those old like boxy Bezek phones.
Oh, wow. Even things like that.
Yeah, even something as simple as like Golda Meir's hairstyle, that iconic do. Anyone who grew up there, especially during that time, would instantly know what those tiles represent.
It's like he's created this visual language, but a shared one.
Exactly. Like a secret code.
Mm.
But the thing is, even if you don't know the code, even if you weren't there, you can't help but be drawn in.
Yeah, totally. But it's more than just images, right? There's also text. I remember reading about these words that he etches along the shelves.
Right. He uses lines from like famous speeches, little snippets of poems. They're even like everyday sayings that you might overhear someone say, like on a street corner, just slices of life.
Yeah.
And they're all from really well-known Israeli figures.
And that just adds another layer, right, to that collective memory, that sense of shared identity.
It's that idea that a culture and identity is built on these shared experiences, these influences that we pass back and forth.
It's like a tapestry almost.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he goes even further, because etched along the front, there are these scriptural passages.
Oh, yes, I love that part.
And I noticed that he chose passages that very specifically mention actual places, locations within Israel. It's like he's tracing a line from those ancient texts to his own experiences, like his own personal story is part of this much bigger story.
And I think that's such a crucial part of it, because by grounding it in those texts, it becomes about something much bigger than just him, just his memories. It's almost like echoes of stories told and retold over and over throughout history. It connects them to something ancient and timeless.
It's interesting, though, because his choice of material feels very much of this time, very current. I mean, he used wood and foam and epoxy, and they have this permanence to them, this solid nature. It's interesting because memory isn't solid, it's constantly changing.
Exactly. Like what really lasts.
Yeah.
Memories can fade or they can change, but these materials, they're like the land itself, this lasting physicality.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, how do we hold on to the past, not just in our minds, but physically?
That's such a good question. It's making me think about, how we preserve the past and also our own relationship to memories, because he challenges us to go beyond just recalling. What do you think? In your line of work, working with mention listeners' field of interest based on the context of this being a custom-made podcast so closely, what object would you choose to encapsulate how much that field has changed, but also where it's going?
Wow. That's a really good question. I'm going to have to think about that. I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. But what I think is so powerful about Cohen's work is that it makes us consider the act of creation.
Hmm.
How does physically shaping memories, turning them into art. How does that actually change how we understand and hold on to our past? It's a question that stays with you long after you've seen the piece.
It definitely makes you think.